Welcome to the Research Like a Pro with DNA question and answer series. And today we are talking about a great question that came up in the study group as we are writing our research reports about adding transitions to help a DNA research report flow. And I'll talk about transitions, and I'll also talk about how AI can help with this. So the question about writing transitions in general was, how can I improve the transitions between different sections in my genealogical research report, particularly when weaving together DNA match analysis for multiple groups of DNA matches and sources? And this is a really common situation when writing a research report that includes documentary research along with DNA evidence. So some transition strategies that I really like are subheadings. A subheading lets the user or the reader know automatically that we're switching to a new topic and helps them get an idea of what the new topic will be about, and really sets off the new section so that it helps the reader get into a new frame of mind. Another transition strategy is using a summary sentence. And so before changing to a new topic, you can summarize what the last section went over. And that summary can notify the reader that we are done with that section and going to a new topic. So I really like the summary. Another strategy is to have formulaic sections where each section of your report starts with why you wanted to search this type of source or do this method, then gives the information you found from doing that, and then ends with kind of a summary or the progress on the research objective from doing that search or doing that method. And so each section has a certain flow to it, and then that can help you set off each section and then transition to new sections. That helps the reader understand what they're going to see when you talk about new results. Some transition phrases that can help us are listed here. We can do any or all of these. Sometimes our reports are chronological, sometimes they're more about correlation. And so depending on your style of report, you might turn to some, one, or all of these. So for example, if your report is chronological, you might use a lot of transition phrases that go along with the order of events: earlier, before, after, by this year, and so forth. If you're doing more of a correlative type of report, then perhaps you will have words such as aligns, or this corroborates the previous research, or this correlates with that, and this supports the finding. Or you can use comparative words like similarly or conversely for anything that conflicts. Despite this evidence, this new evidence shows. And so these kinds of transition phrases can help us as well. And so you might, at the end of a section about one group of DNA matches, say, now, despite these findings, another cluster was found that shows a different set of common ancestors. Then the reader knows that we're going to look at a different cluster and that it doesn't exactly line up with the previous findings. So these transition phrases can help the research report flow. And another set of phrases we could try is thematic. This shows that we have a certain theme that we focused on, and now we're going to shift to a different theme. So beyond this topic, or shifting to, turning now to, or regarding this topic. So that can help us just switch maybe between the documentary evidence and the DNA evidence. Another way we can organize our documentary research is by using geographic transition phrases. Moving from Arkansas, we are now going to Texas, and then you can share the results found from searching within Texas records. Or maybe you're following their migration path to give kind of a timeline of the events and show the findings for each of those places, following their migration to XYZ. Other words that can help are analyticals, like you can say therefore, or consequently, or as a result, and these kind of give you the syllogisms that often are used in a proof argument. So if your report is leaning toward a proof argument, you might want to organize it in a way that the transitions are more analytical and building blocks, building on each other so that you eventually can show that you have proven the objective. And then another type of transition that you might use are documentary phrases, just focusing on different record types. Now turning to tax records. Next, we will focus on land records, vital records, church records, now DNA evidence. So this can be another way of organizing the report. And if you do organize it that way, it makes transition really easily because you can just say, and now we will look at this type of records. So all of these are different ways that you can use transitions. Now, one way to speed up the process of writing transitions is to use artificial intelligence. So these tools, large language models, are very good at language and writing. And so anytime you have rough notes about your findings and you can paste them into a large language model, you can then work with that to smooth out the writing, add transitions, add summaries, add anything that you think will help the reader when they're reading it. So, for example, you can provide a research report that lacks transitions, or even just paste a few sections at a time. There's many ways to do this. You can paste 2 paragraphs and say, write a transition between this. You can upload the entire report and say, suggest transitions between each section, and then it will give you some ideas. So I tried this with my notes that I've been taking on my research project. So I've been working on my project to prove that Sally Keaton Reeves was the daughter of William Reeves, was the daughter of William Keaton. She was married to William Reeves. And so what I had right now was some notes about my research in DNA evidence. I had used DNA GEDCOM to gather the ancestors of a cluster of matches. So I had about 50 matches who I had identified as potential descendants of Sally Reeves. And I had put them into a colored cluster in Ancestry DNA. And then I went to DNA GEDCOM and I filtered down to just those matches, and then filtered even more to those with only public linked trees. And then I told DNA GEDCOM to gather the matches, but not the in common with. And when it gathers the matches, it also gathers all of the ancestors in their tree. So after I did that, it really only took 10 minutes. It was really fast. Then I was able to open up a spreadsheet that had all of the DNA matches and 1 row for each of their direct ancestors, depending on how many they had. Some had 5 rows, some had 30. And so then I was able to sort that by the surname Reeves, and I looked for anyone with one of the children that I had identified as Sally's children who had a really helpful name, John Malden Reeves. Because of that surname, I was able to notice that the Malden family was a fan club member of the Keaton family. And I was trying to prove that Sally Reeves was a William Keaton daughter. So this John Malden Reeves, I was looking for any of his descendants in the DNA matches. And there was a group of them. I found about 10 in this spreadsheet from DNA GEDCOM, 10 DNA matches who have John Malden Reeves in their tree. So that was kind of one of the things I was writing in my notes, in my research report, kind of my rough report before I finished it. So I uploaded or pasted in my notes into ChatGPT. I chose the model O4 Mini High, which is one of the best models they have right now that uses extended thinking and reasoning, and just told it to first anonymize the names of the matches so I could share it with you here, and then write transitions between each section, because I had kind of 4 sections that I was working on. So first, it gave me these transition statements that I could incorporate into the existing sections. So one of the transitions toward the beginning, after the objective and before the research, talks about, to address our objective, determining whether Sally Reeves, wife of William Reeves and mother of John Malden Reeves, was indeed the daughter of William Keaton, we began by examining the DNA match data exported from DNA GEDCOM. So it kind of gives you like more information about what we're going to do next. And then it gives an overview of the DNA matches and how we anonymize them. And then another transition was talking about how I found the family tree of John, let's see, if Sally, let's see, John Malden Reeves, the family tree of John Malden Reeves, he had a bunch of children. So that was part of my notes, was just listing all of the children that I found in this family tree. And then it says, with the names and vital dates of John Malden Reeves' offspring established, we fed the list into Claude alongside the anonymized match spreadsheet to identify which matches to send from each child. So it's kind of giving like an overview of what was done with like a chronological transition showing one step to the next. And it's using that chronological transition structure for the next section, kind of leading through the research process that was done. After mapping matches 1 through 6 to John Malden Reeves' children, we broadened our scope to include potential Keaton siblings. So after, looking at the match group of John Malden Reeves' children, now we're looking at descendants of the other Keaton siblings. So it's using the phrase after, and we broadened our scope to kind of let the reader know why we're doing this and what the next thing is going to be about. So these transitions were okay. Then I said, rewrite the report in a more formal style and incorporate all the transitions. So my report notes were very informal, so I was wanting it to rewrite it with a different style. And then it incorporated what I had written and then added in those transition statements along with the data that I had. As you can see here, ChatGPT is using the side-by-side editor view. This is called Canvas. You can actually type directly into this to change things if you don't like it. And then you can chat with ChatGPT on the sidebar here. And then scrolling down, you can see that it added a few more details, and I had it remove the names of the matches that it had anonymized, because at the beginning it gave me a key of the anonymizations it had done. And so this is one way that you might want to explore for adding transition statements, and you can play with it and have it give you different types of transitions or more elaborate transitions and that kind of thing. So hopefully this gave you some ideas for creating transitions in your report and organizing the report in a logical way. And so good luck with your genealogical research reports.